Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I'm going to be talking about some seasonal pricing strategies and some things you need to understand as we move into the colder winter months. So make sure you stay tuned. As we head into the colder months, it's absolutely crucial that both buyers and sellers understand not only pricing strategies and antics during this time, but also market timelines, especially as it relates to our current situation with the mortgage interest rates. The first thing that we need to kind of contextualize is that this time of year always slows down. This is very normal. So even though we are seeing exceedingly high interest rates compared to what we were seeing in the months prior and in the year prior, we are seeing a typical seasonal slowdown. And this is just sort of part of the rhythm and the cycle that real estate goes through every single year. So that combined with the interest rates and everything else we're going to be talking about is making for an exceptionally cold season. The second thing you have to understand as we talk about sort of the rhythm and the cycle of the real estate market from beginning to the end of the year is that spring and summer typically tend to favor sellers in the market. And a lot of that is the warmer weather. People are more inclined to move. As we transition into this colder weather, it is typical to be sort of transitioning more into a buyer's market. That is going to mean that buyers have more negotiating power and more leverage when it comes to defining the terms of a contract. Typically, there is a lot less competition this time of year as well, which means that buyers often have the upper hand, even without the crazy interest rates and everything else we have going on. That means that if you are selling your home at this time of year, that you need to be prepared to negotiate, you need to be prepared to offer concessions, and you might have to add in some extra bells and whistles in order to attract a buyer. One thing that sellers need to do for sure in this time of year is to manage expectations. Always, we try to get pricing right up front from the get-go. It's super important not to overprice your listing. I've made plenty of videos about this, but in short, I will say that when you overprice a listing and hope that you can kind of negotiate your way down to the price you'd actually feel comfortable at or what the market data is showing that it's actually worth, you're actually harming your listing because it sits, it goes through multiple price reductions, and then it becomes stigmatized. So a lot of buyers starts to wonder what is wrong with the home and why has it been sitting and why has it undergone so many price reductions, right? So you don't want to do that, but even if you do price it appropriately, you may have to buckle up and prepare for some price reductions if you do need to get it sold. You also need to prepare for longer timelines and mitigate expectations. You might have to give more than you were planning to as far as repair credits or even offer a bigger incentive for the buyer's agent. As crappy as it sounds, it does help when you are able to pay a buyer's agent more than other listings to attract a buyer. If you didn't know that already, the seller is typically the one responsible for covering the commissions for both the listing agent who's going to represent them in the sale, but also the buyer's agent. That comes from the selling side of the balance sheet. That number is negotiated between the seller and their listing agent up front, and when it is listed in the MLS, that commission to the buyer's broker, that is going to be listed in the actual listing, and all buyer's agents look at that when they're lining up showings for their clients, so keep that in mind. The other thing, elephant in the room, though I've already touched on it, that we need to talk about is the mortgage interest rates. They are at an all-time high for the past 20 years, which is making affordability an even bigger issue than it already has been for buyers in our market. So sellers are going to need to keep that in mind. When there are lower interest rates, a lot more buyers can afford to play. So you end up with a lot more competition, which then drives prices up, which is obviously favorable for sellers. But in the situation that we are in right now, buyers are already struggling to be able to afford homes. And so sellers are going to have to bite the bullet at times and actually lower prices in order to compensate for those high mortgage interest rates. And a lot of people are not going to do that, so we're just going to have an even bigger scarcity issue with inventory than we've had for years past. It's worth noting that people ask me all the time, when are the rates coming down? And I am not a psychic. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know. If you are someone who has to sell in this market, it is imperative that your home shows well. In this market, if you are selling, you are competing against other sellers for a very, very small pool of buyers, and you have to be the one that stands out. You have to come home and clean your house and make it look nice for every showing, or you may miss out on an opportunity, because if the house next door is also for sale and it looks better and smells better and the photos are nicer, guess what? That's going to be the more attractive purchase for a buyer. So you have to keep that in mind. Okay, to conclude, this time of year we always see a shift, right? And if you are playing ball on either side of the buyer seller pool, or both, if you're in my shoes, you have to keep in mind that the market dynamics always kind of go in this cycle, and we're seeing a very amplified version of this scenario because of the mortgage interest rates. On top of housing being expensive and loan products being expensive, life in general is just very expensive. I know that we're all feeling it right now, and sellers are also feeling that, because it's going to be a lot harder to sell when there are less buyers. Okay, that was a lot. If you guys have any questions about the current state of the market, if you have any questions about the cyclical nature of real estate or anything else having to do with properties in the Northern Nevada market, I'm your girl. I would love to chat with you. You can book a free call with me. There's a link to do that in the description box below. It's no obligation, just an opportunity for us to connect and see if I may be of service to you, get your questions answered, help you devise your next and best steps. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that like and that subscribe button. I put out new videos every single week about the Reno Sparks lifestyle, the Northern Nevada housing market, and all things to do with buying and selling real estate. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.